Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Grilled for Murder by Maddie Day, narrated by Laural Merlington. Chapter 1. Was I nuts? I don't know what I was thinking, agreeing to cater and host a welcome-home party in my country store and restaurant tonight. I'd already been working since 6 this morning, serving up breakfast and lunch to wave after wave of hungry customers on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. I sank into a chair as the antique clock chimed. Thankfully, 2 o'clock was only half an hour until closing time, and just 3 people remained, lingering over their gourmet hamburgers. A couple played a game of chess on the painted tabletop, and the third read a newspaper. Exactly the kind of scene I'd envisioned when I'd bought this old country store and opened Pans N Pancakes on the edge of Southlake, Indiana. I gazed at the gleaming counters, the shelves full of vintage cookware, the pickle barrel, proud I had accomplished nearly all the renovation carpentry myself. My mom had wanted to be sure her daughter would always have a trade which came in handy when I'd bought the rundown place nestled in the hills of scenic Brown County last winter. Now Turkey Day was over. I needed to get decorated for Christmas, but that could wait until tomorrow, after I got through this darn party. Oh well. It was income, and my bank account could always use more deposits. I glanced up when the cowbell on the door jangled. Sue Barry bustled in with her daughter Paula, the hosts of tonight's shindig for Sue's other daughter. I waved them over to my table. "Everything all set for tonight, Robbie?" Sue asked. She plopped down across from me, her short cap of bottle blonde hair looking more tousled than usual. "I think so. Have a seat, Paula," I said to the daughter, a woman in her 30s. "Thanks, but I think I'll stand. My back's kind of bothering me." Paula nestled her other hand in the small of her back, her pregnant belly pushing out a black knit shirt under her open coat. She wore her dark hair pulled back in a messy knot, and her face was devoid of makeup, letting the high color of a woman carrying a child shine through, but also showing the dark splotches under her eyes. 3 months to go. I sure can't wait to be a grandmother," Sue said in a bright voice, beaming up at Paula and then turning back to me. "So the cupcakes are all ordered, and Glenn and Max will bring the drinks over a little early. I'm just as thrilled as punch we can do this for our dear Erica." Sue's other daughter, Erica, had moved back to Southlake a month earlier. I wasn't quite sure why they'd waited a month to welcome her back, but I was happy they'd chosen to have the welcome-back party at Pans N Pancakes. Erica's late husband had been my boyfriend's twin brother, so I could hardly say no. Sue and Paula had both been customers over the last month and a half since I'd opened, so they'd had a taste of my cooking. "I'll have a veggie platter and a couple of dips out," I said. "I've made up a pasta salad and a coleslaw, as we discussed. I have the mini sliders ready to go and a couple dozen hand pizzas ready in the freezer. I'll pop those in the oven during the party so they can be served hot." "Hand pizza?" Paula asked. "Pizza with fingers sounds fun." I laughed. "They're just small, like the size of a hand. Maybe I should call them individual pizzas." "It don't matter what you call them. They are going to be so yummy," Sue said. Her blue eyes sparkled behind a bit too much eye makeup. "The mini sliders sound delicious," Paula said. "Beef, turkey, and black bean. And my friend Phil is going to tend bar." Thank goodness for Phil. My congenial friend was a talented singer and baker, and had helped me out of a jam more than once. "Good. So the guys can relax and enjoy themselves." Sue beamed her approval. "Hey, Robbie, you ever think about entering the log cabin competition in Nashville?" Nashville was the county seat 5 miles away. Nashville, Indiana, not Tennessee. "The what?" "I'd love to build a house someday, but right now I have my hands full here." "Mom means gingerbread log cabins, right?" Sue snapped her fingers. "It's so gall-dang cute. Everybody makes log cabins out of gingerbread and other edible stuff. They judge it over at the Brown County Inn." "You could make a cabin of a country store and enter it," Paula said. She gestured around the store. "You know, with the front door standing open. You could have little shelves of cookware showing, and a few tables and chairs. Put a couple of rocking chairs on the front porch like you have, and I bet you'd win a prize." "It sounds fun, if I could find the time." When could I fit baking and decorating a log cabin into my schedule, though? Monday, my day off, was the only possibility. On the other hand, it would be good publicity for the store. The door jangled again, and a frowning, broad-shouldered man strode in. "There you are," he said, spying Paula. Paula twisted her wedding band around and around. "Max, I told you I was going out with Mom." "Max, honey, come meet Robbie," Sue gestured to him. After Max approached the table, Sue said, "Robbie Jordan, this is Paula's husband, Max Holzhauser. Max, Robbie." He extended a big, meaty hand. "Nice to meet you, Robbie." He barely got the glower off his face, which featured a jutting Neanderthal brow and heavy eyebrows now pulled together in the middle. His thick hair, tucked behind his ears, brushed his collar. I shook his hand. "Likewise. Sit down." What was he so mad about? "Can't. Let's go, Paula." He took hold of Paula's upper arm. She wasn't much taller than my own 5'4". He was not only a little over 6 feet tall, he was also stocky and heavy-boned. Paula pried his hand off, twisting out of his grasp. "I'm doing errands with my mother, Max. I'll be home in time to get ready for the party." Her jaw worked. "Have it your own way, then." He cracked his knuckles. "You always do." One of my chess-playing customers looked up and frowned at the disturbance. I watched Max leave, hearing the door close with more force than necessary, and glanced at Paula. Sue had taken one of her daughter's hands in both of hers and was stroking it. "Things will work out, sugar," Sue murmured as the bell on the door continued to jangle. "He'll get a hold on that temper of his, bless his heart. You'll see." The timer on the oven dinged right after the wall clock chimed 8. We were an hour into the party, and it was in full swing. I hurried over to draw out the last pan of pizzas. I slid them onto a tray, the cheese bubbling in tan spots, the aroma of fresh crust almost too alluring. I sliced each pizza into quarters and carried them to the food table. I wiped my hands down my blue and white store apron, which featured our logo of a cast-iron griddle held by a grinning stack of pancakes, and surveyed the now packed room. Late this afternoon, Phil and I had pushed the tables to the sides and stacked half the chairs in a corner to leave room for mingling. Near the Welcome Back to South Lick Erica banner, a small group of men, including Max, Sue's husband Glenn, and green-eyed Jim Shermer, clustered with beers in hand. Paula, now made up and in a green dress that didn't try to disguise her baby bump, sat talking with Tiffany Porter, an attractive local jewelry maker who owned a gift shop in town. Phil stood behind the bar table chatting with Sue. His dark face was aglow, and he beamed his wide smile that always reminded me of Denzel Washington's. Other townspeople, some of whom I'd met, many I hadn't, chatted in small groups, with a few women browsing the shelves of cookware. Country music played from a couple of small speakers someone had set up next to an iPad, and the buzz of conversation over the tunes was loud. The only person missing was the guest of honor, Erica. She was more than an hour late. People were starting to talk, and Sue had pasted on a smile so fake it looked like it came from a photo editing app. It had to have upset the family to have Erica's husband take his own life, and I wondered why she'd taken so long to move back home. Or if Sue was now worried something had happened to Erica. I picked up an empty slider platter and headed back to the open kitchen area, smothering a yawn before drawing another pan of sliders out of the warmer. I'd made little rolls for buns, pre-cooked the patties, and assembled the tiny burgers shortly before the party started. All I had to do now was serve them. Then maybe I could sit down for a few minutes. As I set the platter of sliders on the food table, Tiffany walked up to me. "I really like all your cookware, Robbie." Her full lips curved into a smile, lighting up her face, and her almond-shaped eyes crinkled at the edges. "Thanks. Half of it was already here when I bought the store, and I've acquired the rest." "Don't you just love thinking about who cooked with it when it was new?" she asked, gazing at the far wall. "Exactly." "I'd like to ask you a quick question about one piece." "Sure." We moved across the room together. Tiffany, 4 or 5 inches taller than me, especially in heels, walked with a fluid motion like an athlete might. Her light brown hair fell in graceful waves below her shoulders. She pointed with an elegant finger that ended in the perfect white tip of a French manicure. "What's that round thing with the 2 long handles?" "That's a sandwich press." It featured 2 slightly convex cast-iron discs joined by a hinge, and 2 long handles extending out. After you insert a cheese sandwich between the discs, you clamp the press shut and then hold it over a gas flame or even a campfire to toast the sandwich. It makes the best grilled cheese in the world. You can grill other kinds of sandwiches too, of course. "And it's beautiful, too." "Sure is. Browse as much as you want. The pieces for sale have tags on them."
"Thanks."
She moved on down to the shelf area. I turned back to the party and made my rounds, picking up empty dishes, tidying the food display. I paused when I passed a smiling Jim, my new boyfriend and my former real estate lawyer. I knew he wanted more than the occasional date, but I was so busy with the store and restaurant, and he with his practice. We usually only managed Sunday nights together, since Pans N Pancakes was closed on Mondays. "Everything looks great, and tastes even better," he said, smoothing an errant black curl off my forehead. He looked more delicious than any food I could make, with those emerald eyes, that curly red hair he wore a bit long and shaggy, and his trim body. Tonight he wore a deep blue shirt with well-cut black pants, but he could look smoking hot even in an old T-shirt and ragged jeans. "Thanks. It seems to be going pretty well, doesn't it?" I smiled back at him. "Except Erica isn't here." His forehead furrowed. "I wonder what's keeping her." "It's not a surprise party, is it? Sue never said anything about that." "No, I don't think it's supposed to be a surprise. Oh, well. Erica has always been a bit, shall we say, dramatic." He pulled his mouth. "She probably wants to make a grand entrance." I saw Sue glance at the phone in her hand and touch it a few times with her index finger.
"Gol dang, she's almost here," she announced with a big smile. "Get ready, y'all."
Sure enough, it wasn't 2 minutes later when the cowbell jangled and a woman pushed in, shedding a puffy white thigh-length coat as she walked. She wore a snug red dress that crossed over in the front and nowhere near covered her cleavage. This had to be Erica. She was closer in height to her tiny mother than to Paula, and her spiky blonde hair and light coloring was more like Sue's too. Through the door behind her emerged Abe O'Neill, a cute guy I'd met earlier in the fall who worked for the local electric company. He set a banjo case on the floor as the talking fell to a hush. Erica left Abe at the door and swanned over to her mother on 4-inch red heels. She gave Sue a hug and then waved to the room.
"Hi, everybody,"
she called out.
"Thanks so much for all this."
Her father, a man in his 60s whose dark hair was shot through with silver, raised his beer. "Welcome back, sweetheart." A chorus of "welcome back" echoed throughout the room. Next to me, Jim raised his bottle of Cutter's half-quart IPA. "Welcome back, Ricky." Erica turned her head sharply, then tilted her head in a seductive pose when she saw who'd said it. She clicked on her heels over to where we stood and slid her arm through Jim's.
"Oh, Jim, you're the only person besides John who can call me that."
She pursed her lips in a pout.
"And he's gone.
She stroked his arm with her other hand and cast luminous blue eyes up at Jim. A shadow passed over Jim's face as he carefully detached from Erica's arm and pushed his glasses back up the bridge of his nose. John, his twin, had killed himself in Chicago a year ago. Jim had told me how hard it had been for him, and still was, to lose his twin and to suicide, too.
I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking. I'll call you Erica from now on.
No, I want you to call me Ricky. Please?
Jim cleared his throat.
Have you met my girlfriend, Robbie Jordan? This is her restaurant and country store.
He slung his arm along my shoulders, giving my arm a squeeze. Erica narrowed her eyes and studied me before flashing a big smile. She held out her hand.
His girlfriend? Well, isn't this a surprise?
Nice to meet you, Erica. Welcome back. I forced a smile and shook her hand. I snuck a glance at Jim, who straightened his collar and was looking anywhere but at Erica. I gazed around the store. Almost everyone had stopped what they were doing, food halfway to their mouths, bottles halfway raised, to watch Erica.
Isn't this a cute place you've got here? Erica said. It was a real dump last time I lived in town.
Robbie did all the renovation work herself, too.
Jim's smile at me was genuine.
Imagine that. You're so talented,
she said in a voice oozing insincerity. I'll be bringing out some hot sliders in a minute, and the pizzas over there are probably still warm if you're hungry. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll let you two have some time to catch up. I cast another quick look at Jim before heading to the kitchen area, and if that wasn't a panicked expression on his face, I don't know what was. Well, he was a big boy. He could handle his former sister-in-law. Or not. I sure wasn't going to get in the middle. Chapter 2. It was 9 o'clock before I finally got a chance to take off my apron and sit down near my desk in the far corner. When Sue had made the arrangements for the party, she'd also made it clear she hoped I would join them when I could. She'd said I should consider myself part of the family, and not only the caterer. So I'd worn my black swingy dress with the cap sleeves and my turquoise cowboy boots. A multicolored chunky necklace brightened up the dress, and even though I had to wear my thick curly Italian hair pulled back when I was working, I'd added a sparkly pin for a party touch. A group of guys over near the door, including Abe, laughed at some joke, and several couples danced in the middle of the space. Erica flitted from group to group, a bottle of beer in her hand. By the smiles and hugs, people seemed genuinely glad to have her back in town. I let the party flow around me, glad to hold a plastic cup of white wine and get off my feet. It had been a long day, but I loved seeing the place full. Part of my dream in restoring the store and adding the restaurant had been to make it a community gathering place, just like this. A tune sounding like West Coast swing came on, and Jim strolled up, his eyes sparkling.
May I have the pleasure of this dance?
We'd gone dancing at a local roadhouse on our very first date, the one that unfortunately ended in news of a murder in town. We shared a love of dance, although my experience was mostly freestyle, while he knew steps to all different kinds of dances, from swing to contra to international folk dancing. He told me that was how he stayed fit, by going dancing every chance he got. I grabbed one more sip of wine, then said, "Why not?" I extended my hand and let him pull me up and lead me to where others were dancing. He was a good half-foot taller than me, and it felt perfect to lay my hand on his shoulder and have him take my other hand in his. He waited until the song started a new phrase, then led me through the steps. I tried to stay loose and follow, not my strong suit, but we'd gone dancing several more times in recent weeks, and I was starting to get the hang of it. He told me about staying in the box, about imagining a rectangle defining our moves. It helped. Next to us, Phil twirled the woman he was dancing with, and then bent her down in a dip. He caught my eye and grinned, then straightened and waltzed away. The music changed to a slower tune. Jim pulled me in close, and the feel of his warm, smooth shirt under my cheek, his head bent down over mine, was heavenly. But after only a minute in paradise, a woman's shouts broke our bubble. I pulled away from Jim. Erica and Tiffany stood a couple of yards away facing each other.
"You're lying!"
Erica pointed a red-lacquered fingernail at Tiffany's face.
"I didn't do any such thing."
The room quieted, with only the music continuing. Glenn Barry rushed to his daughter's side.
"What's going on here?"
He looked from one woman to the other, the silver at the temples of his close-shorn dark hair catching the light. Tiffany set her hands on her hips, nostrils flaring in her golden-skinned face, earrings mixing gold and silver that flashed in the light.
"She's been stealing from me. She said she wanted to learn how to make jewelry, but all she wanted to do was own it." "It's not true, and you can't prove it."
Erica glared at Tiffany.
"Why'd you come here anyway? So you could party with a thief? Get some free food and drink?" "I was giving you the benefit of the doubt. But that bracelet?"
Tiffany pointed to an intricate hoop of silver twisted with other metals on Erica's wrist.
"It's missing from the store."
Erica snorted.
"Oh, my late husband gave it to me. I wouldn't steal your precious stock. It's not very well made anyway."
Tiffany took a step toward Erica. Glenn stepped between them and pushed out both hands.
"Now wait a chicken-picking minute, girls. Y'all don't need to fight about this."
"You're right," Tiffany spit out. "Larceny is a matter for the police."
She grabbed her bag from the table and rushed toward the door. She tore her coat from the coat tree, and, with a fierce jangle of the bell, was gone at the same time as the coat tree swayed and crashed to the ground. I glanced at Jim and shook my head, then hurried to the coat tree, arriving at the same time as Abe. He set it back to standing while I gathered up a couple of coats from the floor. I dusted them off one by one and handed them to him.
"Thanks," I said. "That was quite a scene."
"I'll say. Erica has never held back from drama, that's for sure."
He hung up the last coat.
"Did you bring her here?"
Earlier in the fall, Abe had asked me out to dinner. It had ended up being the day a murderer had run me off the road on my bicycle, and I'd broken my clavicle, so we'd never gotten to the dinner. Anyway, I was seeing Jim, and it looked like maybe Abe was going out with Erica. He laughed the delightful rolling laugh I remembered.
"No way. I just happened to arrive at the same time she did. But we used to go out, long time ago."
"How have you been lately?"
"I'm good. Keeping busy."
He stuck his hands in the pockets of his jeans, which he wore with a white Oxford shirt and a gray blazer. The look suited him.
"Still playing banjo?"
I gestured at the case, which he'd set behind the coat tree.
"You bet. Might still drag it out tonight if inspiration strikes."
He flashed me his big smile, that same dimple creasing his right cheek, his brown eyes smiling, too.
"I'd love to hear you play."
"Could happen. Hey, sorry we never got our dinner in. I know you're, hanging out with Shermer, but if an evening ever frees up, you give me a call, okay?"
"Okay.
Right now I think I'd better get back to cleaning up the food table." I headed for the decimated dinner array, but paused at the drinks table.
"How's it going, Phil?"
I asked. A couple of bottles of bourbon had made an appearance on the table, and neither was full by the looks of it.
Not bad at all. I'm keeping an eye on a couple of folks, though. Might need a little backup from the owner at some point."
He raised his eyebrows and pointed his gaze toward Max.
"He's overindulging?"
Gah! Acting as a bouncer wasn't what I'd signed up for.
"Getting a little sloppy. He gestured at the bottles of whiskey. With this stuff, we could have quite a few overindulgers.
Sue said it's okay to have the whiskey?
He shrugged and winked one of his startlingly blue eyes. It was her husband who brought it, so I guess it is. Now,
a man's voice said from a few tables away. I looked in that direction. Max stood in front of where Paula sat talking to a couple of women.
It's time to go.
His deep voice carried to Phil and me. Paula shook her head. I'm having fun, Max. I'm staying.
You need to come home with me. I'm concerned about our baby.
He reached down and grabbed her wrist, pulling upward. Not this again. Probably not a good idea to try to intervene, but I hated seeing him rough with her. Max! Now Paula raised her voice. She swatted at his hand with her free one. Let go. It's my sister's party, and I'm not leaving. The baby is fine. Max drew his mouth down and looked like he might erupt.
Get your own ride home, then.
He let go of her wrist and stalked toward the door. Erica waylaid him halfway there. Hey, big guy. She set one hand on her hip and laid the other hand flat on his chest. She gazed up at him, a little smile curving her lips. You be nice to my big sister now here. She just wants to have a little fun before she becomes a mama.
You too, huh?
Max's face hardened.
Get out of my way, Erica.
He lifted her hand off his chest.
I'm simply thinking about her health, but I guess I'm the only one who is.
Now, Big Max. We all love Polly, you know that. Erica still smiled, but her voice turned as steely as my best knife. And we love you, too. I don't want to be seeing you guys argue. Max glared down at her without speaking. He turned and left the store. Whew! Erica sashayed back to the fold while I tried to remember what I'd been doing before the eruption. Oh, Robbie, hon, Sue called from the table where she sat, waving her hand. Can you bring out them cupcakes? Shoot, of course, the dessert. I never should have removed my apron. Coming right up, I said. I hurried to tie on a clean apron and rushed through consolidating the rest of the food at one end of the table. I spread a clean cloth on the other half, retrieved the cupcakes from the walk-in cooler, and carried out the big box from the local bakery. After I opened the box and slid the foil-topped cardboard tray onto the table, I set a stack of small plates and napkins next to the dessert. The cupcakes were decorated with tiny versions of the town's landmark Jupiter gazebo, once the site of a famous sulfur spring and spa, thus the town's name. When I'd moved here from Santa Barbara, I'd found a name with the word lick in it slightly vulgar, but I'd learned it was like a salt lick, a naturally occurring place where animals went to lick salt and other essential minerals. So the lick in the name only meant salts had been part of the mineral springs. Dessert, anyone? I called out in my best outdoor voice. I stood back and watched people flock to the table. What was dinner without some sugar to top it off, especially when people were drinking? Erica and Jim approached together. She picked up a cupcake and peeled back the paper with those red fingernails in 4 slow, seductive movements, watching Jim as she did. She took a bite, then ran her tongue around her lips. Jim glanced at me and rolled his eyes before grabbing a cupcake and turning away from her. I turned away, too. I had pans to wash. The crowd had thinned to a half-dozen or so by 11 o'clock. The elderberries had thanked me profusely, and Sue had pressed a check for $50 over our agreed amount into my hand before they left an hour earlier. Erica had shed her heels and sat on the sofa, which I'd arranged with a couple of chairs and a nook for a small informal sitting area. She had her feet tucked up under her, and a half-inch of whiskey in the cup she held. Paula sprawled next to her with her feet up on a chair. Abe sat picking out tunes on his banjo, accompanied by a guy who had pulled out a harmonica, while Phil, the aspiring opera star, sang a
Sample complete. Ready to continue?